And I looked at him, I'm like, what do you mean? What? We got everything. And he said, no, we didn't. Because before this all happened, I saw my son 100% of the time. Every day I came home from work and he was there. Every day I could see him, I could put him to bed, I could ask him how his day was. And now I have him two-thirds of the time. And I lost a third of the time with my son. And I mean, it was heartbreaking for me to, it was just eye-opening. I hadn't been divorced yet at that time. And so it didn't really occur to me how much you lose in divorce, regardless of what you like win in divorce court. Everybody really loses in divorce court. And anyway, that was really eye-opening for me.
Hello and welcome to the Attorney Post, where we give you the inside scoop with top attorneys in their field. And now, here's our host, Justin West.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Attorney Post, where we discuss what's going on in various facets of the law with attorneys at the top of their game to help you navigate the various ins and outs of legal fields and jurisdictions, because as I always say, if you don't know your rights, you don't have any. Today, I'm very pleased to be joined by the lovely Daryl Weinman, who runs the eponymous law firm that bears her name, Weinman Associates. Daryl, how are you doing this morning?
Doing great, thanks.
Awesome. Well, as always, before we get started, I'm going to jump over and take a look at your website. This is Daryl's website. That is WeinmanFamilyLaw.com. That's WEINMAN, Family Law, FAMILYLAW.com. If you need a family attorney and you're in the Texas area, particularly around Austin, Weinman Law would be a great resource for you. And that's what we're talking about today is all the various family law things. They are a family law, sorry. My notes are jumbled here. Weinman Associates PC is a Texas family law firm serving Austin, Travis County, and the surrounding regions, focusing on divorce, custody, child support, property division, and related family law matters. The firm emphasizes a deeply personal approach to family law, with Daryl Weinman's own life experience as a child of divorce, a divorcee, a mother, and a stepmother, shaping the way that she works with her clients. We'll also be talking about a couple of new projects she has coming down the pipeline here in a little bit, including her divorce financial calculator called Exhale, which I'm kind of curious to see what that is and how that works as well. I think I might see a link to it up here, but you can check out her website at WeinmanFamilyLaw.com or give her a call at 512-472-4040. And as always, we will have a link to her website and all the resources down below in the links. Before we get started, we're going to jump over and read from our sponsor. Our first sponsor today is SearchSift. Do you know why some clicks in Google ads, particularly in legal, can cost $100, $200, even $500 or more? It's not because Google has a magical button that says, make everything expensive for lawyers and expensive niches like roofing and plumbing and HVAC. It's because Google is an auction. And when 5 or 10 or 20 businesses are all bidding on the same high-intent search phrases, car accident lawyer near me, divorce attorney near me, new roof, new installation, etc., criminal defense lawyer, prices go up and up and up. But what most firms and most businesses miss out on is that before someone ever clicks on an ad, before they ever see the map pack, before they ever choose a firm on page 1, Google's already shaping the search with autocomplete suggestions, and that's where SearchSift comes in. SearchSift helps position your firm or your business earlier in the search journey, inside the predictive search that people see before they make their decision. So instead of only fighting after the search happens and you're one position of 10 or 15 on page 1 of Google, you start influencing intent before the click, and you become the only thing they find once that happens. And you don't pay to show up. SearchSift works in a really unique fashion. They actually do this service for free. That's right. You only pay when somebody actually clicks to your website from one of these searches in Google. So if you're tired of paying auction prices for every lead, maybe it's time to stop fighting where everyone else is fighting. Visit SearchSift, that's SYFT, searchsift.com, and see what your marketplace would look like. Our second sponsor today is Groove Funnels. If you're running an online business, that doesn't mean that you should be paying for 12 different tools before you've even made a single sale, and that's why Groove is a thing. Groove gives entrepreneurs, creators, and marketers one platform for funnels, checkouts, emails, memberships, e-commerce, websites, blogs, affiliations, automations, and more. There's no credit card needed. There's no trial that ever flips to being paid. There's no monthly software bill just to get started. Groove is literally free to use, and they only earn a small percentage of a platform fee when somebody actually buys a product that you sell, whether it's an e-commerce store, a website, an infomercial, webinar, or whatever it happens to be. So stop duct taping your business together with expensive subscriptions. Visit theattorneypost.com/groove today to start for free and never pay anything. That's theattorneypost.com/groove. All righty. Jumping back over here. So again, today I am joined by the lovely Daryl Weinman. She's the founder of Weinman and Associates, PCs, a Texas family law firm serving clients again in Austin, Travis County, and the surrounding region. She's been practicing family law for more than 32 years and has been board certified in family law by the Texas Board of Legal Specialization since 2000. Her work focuses on divorce, custody, child support, property division, and the many emotional and financial issues that come with family transitions. What makes Daryl's perspective especially interesting is that family law is not just a profession for her. She has written about being a child of divorce, going through a divorce herself, and being both a mother and a stepmother, which gives her a very human lens on what clients are experiencing. She's also the creator of Exhale, a divorce financial calculator designed to help people understand what their post-divorce financial life may look like, while also giving attorneys and financial professionals a better way to organize client financial data. So we'll talk about family law today, divorce, custody, finances, technology, and what more than 3 decades in this field can teach you about people, conflict, and helping families move forward. So Daryl, my first question to you is, that was kind of a mouthful, and my mouth hasn't even woken up yet this morning, so I feel like I'm stumbling over every other word that I said, but I'm sure that was barely scratching the surface. So my very first question to you, as always, is what did I miss? Tell me a little bit more about you. What should people know about you that wasn't mentioned?
Wow, you talk so fast. And I'll tell you what, I moved to Austin, Texas from New York City 33 years ago because I wanted a slower life. And I used to talk almost as fast as you do, and I have tried to slow it down. But what people need to know is that I try to be a more of a full service family law firm. Like, I'm not just an attorney who's going to get somebody divorced. Doing the paperwork is just one component of getting somebody divorced, but actually getting them down the road to their new life. I have a huge network, and I've belonged to lots of different networking groups and have done that for all of my 32 years. So that I can meet other professionals that I trust my clients with. So real estate professionals, mortgage professionals, financial planners, mental health professionals, especially both for themselves and for their children. People who and other attorneys, if they have immigration issues, if they have real estate issues, if they have criminal defense issues. I have a great network, and I help to try to get them down the road, not just, here's your lump sum settlement, go. Especially when they have kids, because they are still going to have to co-parent with this other person really forever, not just till those kids turn 18. So to try to get them in a position where they can do that and still thrive, not just survive, but thrive.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So let me ask you this now. Well, I guess give me a pitch for your firm. If obviously I know what you do. I've done some background research and everything else, but give me the real pitch for your firm. How far out do you serve? And why do people choose to work with you?
So, I actually really do care about my clients and my cases, and I do try to get to know them. I try to customize their settlement based on their individual needs. The Texas Family Code has cookie cutter solutions that, if you go to the Attorney General, if you pull forms off the internet, you're going to get the cookie cutter solutions from the Texas Family Code that says, we presume everybody should be joint managing conservators and make decisions together. We presume that the standard possession visitation schedule is going to work for everybody. And it doesn't. Some people have unusual work schedules, or they don't live near each other, or, they have been doing some other customized schedule or making decisions a certain way for a long time, and they want to continue down that road, or they need something customized for their specific needs. And I want to customize it because that cookie cutter solution does not work for everybody. And I try to limit my practice to Central Texas. So, Austin and the surrounding areas, Austin, Travis County, Williamson County, Bastrop, Hayes County. I try not to go too far. And the reason for that is because I have been in this area for 32 years. I know the other lawyers, I know the judges, I know how they rule, I know what they focus on. Family law is very discretionary with the judges. And so, it's not, you need to know who is your judge, what has been their personal life experience, what are their hot buttons. So when I'm presenting, I present, you got to know your audience, right? You got to
Right.
present to the person who's going to make the decision, and they have so much discretion that you want to make sure that you are presenting to the things that that particular judge focuses on. And once I go too far afield, I don't necessarily know the judges. I can still present the case, but before I was before I was an attorney, I worked on Wall Street. I worked in mergers and acquisitions, and I worked in the presentation department. And I supported the financial analysts that presented their they present their pitch to um, potential clients. And so that's my initial training, is how to present, how to make your case, how to make sure that your audience is hearing you, because you can have great facts, but if the audience isn't hearing it, it doesn't really matter.
Gotcha. No, it makes sense. Um, Well, let me ask you a more general question here. What got you into law? Were you've been practicing for 30 years now, and that's a one heck of a good career. Clearly, this is something that you knew you had a passion for, but did you always know this? Did you grow up, I don't know, watching Perry Mason reruns, or, you know, did you always know you want to be an attorney, or is this something that you kind of accidentally stumbled into and realized you had a real gift for? And then what led you into family law in particular? Because obviously there's lots of different facets of law. What brought you from Wall Street to family law in Texas?
So clearly, if you ask my therapist, they're going to tell me I picked family law because I'm a child of divorce. But that was not a clear path. And no, I was not a big fan of attorneys. I don't come from a long line of attorneys, anything like that. When I was in college and about to graduate, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I thought law school sounded interesting. So I took the LSATs and I started looking at law schools. And then I thought, this is a lot of money and a lot of time. And I don't know if I really want to do this. So I didn't go to law school. I looked for jobs on Wall Street. I ended up working for JP Morgan, and right at their corporate headquarters on Wall Street. And I thought, this is a really cool place. I want to move up in this company. And I noticed everybody ahead of me had higher degrees, either MBAs or JDs. And I thought, okay, if I'm going to move up, I need a higher degree. So I decided I wanted to go to law school at one time. I'd already taken the LSATs. I'll go to law school. There was a New York law school was walking distance from Morgan, from Wall Street, and they had a night program. So I went to law school at night. And after the first year of working 60 to 80-hour weeks and going to law school at the same time, I thought, okay, this is a crazy life. I can't keep this up. So I thought, I'm gonna continue with law school, but I really don't like corporate. I don't like banking, and I don't like New York City anymore, even though where I grew up. So I had 3 more years to look for someplace else, and I started looking around the country. I had never lived anywhere but New York, and I found Austin, Texas, and I loved it. And they have a law school here, a really great law school. So I decided to do my last semester here and see if I like it. I liked it. I stayed. I've been here ever since. And I decided that I did not want corporate or banking anymore. I didn't want to be like this tiny little piece of this giant deal. Like I wanted to feel like I was actually making a difference. And that meant I needed to work with individuals one-on-one. So I started doing both family law and criminal defense because I was working one-on-one. I was actually making a difference in people's lives. And eventually, in Travis County, the criminal courthouse and the family courthouse are different buildings, different dockets. It became too hard to do both. And so after a few years, I dropped the criminal and just focused on family law. I got board certified in 2000, and away we go.
There you go. Now, I did notice your website still says criminal defense. Is that something that your firm still offers as a service? You
Yes,
just don't tend to focus on it anymore yourself?
right, right. I have an associate who handles criminal defense for us.
Okay, awesome. Um, I'm a marketer by trade. I'm always looking at things, and I was looking at Austin Criminal Defense as a search phrase. SearchSift is a company that I work with. Full disclosure, my listeners already know this. And every so often, I'll just peek around the corner and see. So there's about 1,000 searches a month for Austin Criminal Defense Attorney. It's an $800 a month or $800 per click keyword, which is just crazy. So if you're out there, if you do run a criminal defense attorney firm, I'm not pitching you. Talk to guys at SearchSift. My goodness. So every so often, I'm picking around. I'm always doing like 5 things while I'm queuing up the next question to talk about. So the next question I want to ask you though is this is one of my favorite questions in family law in particular. I think that you guys tend to have really unique perspectives on this, and that is just that 6 years ago, it's 2026 right now. Obviously, the whole world shut down for a little bit, and I have have found that everyone had different experiences during the COVID experience based on the state they were in, based on the city that they're in, based on the type of law that they did. I actually talked to a personal injury attorney up in New York City, and he was in a building. And my listeners also know this, but for context, if you don't, I'm not a regular listener, you may not know this. I live in a town that's 7 square miles and 10,000 people. It's tiny. Birthplace of Amelia Earhart, but we're a little nowhere flyover town in Natchez, in Kansas. And he worked in a building that regularly saw between 80 and 100,000 people a day go through it. That's like 10 times the size of my entire town, walking through this one building in New York on a daily basis. In the midst of COVID, I think they saw about 100 people a day walk through this building. It's like a drastic, it's like everything just shut down. But obviously New York was a very, very different experience, especially New York City, than I would imagine Texas in general took, though Austin is a bigger city, and tend to lean more, and I'm not going to get into politics per se, but on the more protective side, if I understand correctly, of the lockdown. So I'm curious what your experience during COVID was, both as a law firm. Did everything grind to a halt? How did you manage that? But also, did you notice in the wake of the shutdown and the lockdown and everything else, did divorce numbers tick up in your area? I've heard most attorneys say yes, but some say no. They actually went down for whatever reason. Or did you get more calls for mediation? Or I'm just curious what your experience was. It's a very broad and open-ended question, but it's a question that I find that you guys have very unique perspectives on. So I'd love your thoughts on that.
Okay, well, there's so many components that
There's a lot there.
you threw at me. So, well, first of all, yes, Texas was very different than New York and then California. We reopened very quickly as compared to other states. And because of that, one of the big things that happened here in Austin is, I'm sure people know, Elon Musk got into a dispute with the way California was handling COVID and the way the governor was handling it, and agreed a lot more with the way the Texas governor was handling it. And so he moved all of his companies 15 minutes from my office. So the first thing was the Tesla Giga plant, and that created, I think, 20,000 new jobs. And ever since then, he's brought all the other companies over, and it's created lots and lots of new jobs. It's tremendously helped the economy, and it's brought a lot of California people to Austin. So that and I say that because California laws are so different than Texas laws when it comes to family law, and so it did change perspective when people say, "Well, I'm going to get alimony, right?" And I look at them and go, "No, you're probably not. This is not California. California and Texas see alimony very differently." But my cousin's uncle's mother's friend got alimony, and but they're in California, they're not in Texas. So that was a big thing. We have a lot of that like California mentality that's here that doesn't really conform to what the Texas laws provide. As far as COVID. So, I mean, I remember so clearly on March 20th when everything shut down and everyone was terrified, like it's only going to be for 2 weeks. It's only going to be another 2 weeks. And then it kept going. We were allowed, the Austin mayor allowed us to reopen certain types of businesses, but lawyers were included, on May 11th. And I reopened on May 11th. I'm not good at working from home. I need to be in an office. So I reopened. I didn't make it mandatory for my entire staff, but I think 8 out of 10 showed up because we were all sick of being at home. The courthouse remained closed, and even for Zoom, I mean, everything was shut down, and that was really hard to get anything done when we had domestic violence skyrocketed during that time, child abuse, because the services that would normally go out there to help these people weren't going out there. The jails were mostly empty. I think Travis County Jail holds like 2,500 people, and they had like 1,100 because they were trying to keep their numbers down, and they were keeping all of the drug cases out. Well, that put all the drug dealers back on the street, and all the drug users, it was available to them. They're sitting at home, they're not working, which of course then led to the domestic violence. I mean, there was so much that happened during that time. It was really sad and scary. And it was hard for us as as family law attorneys to get in front of a judge with a protective order and to have children removed. The Travis County Courthouse reopened for Zoom hearings, I think by the end of June, and we were back to doing regular family law cases and our trials by end of June. So really, it was just about a 3-month shutdown for us. But the Travis County Courthouse was under construction and didn't finish until 2023. So we were in Zoom hearings longer than anybody else because when all the other courthouses reopened, we were still in Zoom trials. But in terms of divorce numbers, I remember all the memes coming out about how, oh, numbers are going to skyrocket and, people stuck in the house together are all going to get divorced. I actually saw numbers go down for a while because people were so terrified about money. They couldn't, jobs were kind of on hold, especially anybody in service industries and entertainment industries were all just kind of on hold, and no one knew what was going to happen with their jobs. And everyone was terrified about money. And so even people who were miserable and didn't want to be in the same house, just, lived in separate rooms, but they weren't going to go get another place to live and increase, their monthly budget or the amount they're spending every month. And so I saw a lot of people kind of put their divorces on hold. Once the world started to reopen and people were going back to work and they could see their money, then that's when I saw the spike in divorces, because now they felt more stable and ready to split up. But of course, there was also all of the fighting over, I want my kid to wear a mask to school. I don't care about masks, or I want them to go to school in person. No, they have to be remote. Or, I mean, just the I want to say small details because in the scheme of things, really, they're small details. But they became huge details during COVID.
No, that makes sense. I remember I forgot about the masking issue. I had read enough of the data. My father-in-law is a medical doctor. We did a lot of discussions about this. I'm like, the masking doesn't really do anything. I'm going to give a free shout out to a company that I don't think exists anymore. It was one of those limited time pop-up COVID businesses. It was called like fakemasks.com. And it was this thin mesh, but they had two screens of it. And together it looked like a black mask, and it looked like a normal mask, but it was so comfortable and breathable. I wouldn't want to wear it normally anyway, but if you had to wear a mask, it would pass almost. You say, hey, it's double layered, man. And it let people through. So I definitely wore that. I had one. In fact, I think I still have one in my glove box just in case I go somewhere and they're like, oh, masking is required or whatnot. But anyway, I've given them like one shout out before. I don't even know that it exists anymore because I think that the demand for fake masks has plummeted for some reason. It's really unique to see these cottage industries that grew up around COVID. But that's actually why the podcast exists. We rebooted the podcast in 2020 when everything shut down, and all of a sudden lawyers knew how to Zoom and whatnot. Has you found that this makes it easier to get clients? Do you tend to do a lot more Zoom conferences with clients, and they're much
So,
more open to that, or?
yeah, and it's interesting. Lawyers are not good with change. Lawyers, overall, lawyers are not good with change. And I think I'm a lawyer. I'm not good with change. I may be more on the cutting edge just because I love technology. I love technology. So in 2000, when I was stuck at home on bed rest with one of my pregnancies, I created a website. The first lawyer had a website in Travis County because I like it and I thought it was interesting. And so I tend to adopt it a little more, but it would have taken another decade, I'm sure, before lawyers, judges, courthouses would have adopted Zoom or remote anything, because lawyers are so scared of change and of technology, but we were forced to integrate it. COVID just made us, we were required. And what I saw initially is all the different courthouses were using different platforms. Travis County said Zoom only, and then the judges in Williamson County were all doing something different. And sometimes some of them still are using Microsoft Teams. And one of them, there was a platform called, I forget what it was called, but something specifically designed for courts, which didn't go very far and went away. And now I'm seeing a lot more Google Meet links. So
Yeah.
everybody's using different platforms, but nobody's afraid of it anymore. And we were required. That was it. Even the older lawyers who, didn't want to use technology at all, I saw some of them hiring young associates that literally worked the mouse for them during hearings. Especially when you're talking about share screen and pulling up exhibits. They needed help, and so they got the help, but they were required to use it, and still are. And Travis County, well, we have a whole new courthouse post COVID. That's very high tech, and we are paperless. And a lot of some of the courthouses around Austin are also paperless. All of our exhibits are shown electronically. Everything is uploaded to the court reporter ahead of time, and everything is shown on screens. No more paper. And and then there are judges in some of the rural counties that I go to that still want paper and old-fashioned way. So when we're preparing for a trial, it is different depending on each judge. But my clients, for the most part, are not afraid of Zoom either. And 4 years ago, in 2022, I actually moved my office. I bought some acreage outside of town, which is still not that far. I'm still only about 25 minutes outside of downtown Austin. But if people want to come out here and meet in person, I'm here. I'm happy to have people. I've got conference rooms. But if they are more comfortable on Zoom, they don't want to drive out here, that's fine too. And we will accommodate whatever they want. And what I'm finding is people still want to meet in person because family law is so personal and they want to
Yeah.
meet their attorney. And I'm happy to meet with them in person, especially initially. And then if they want to prepare for their trial or, just answer questions and meet over Zoom, that's fine too. We can accommodate either one. I had AT&T drag fiber out to this property, make sure we have good connection.
One of my favorite artifacts that came out of the attorneys trying to adjust to a world of Zoom was there was an attorney, and I think most people are familiar with this, but he joined a hearing of some kind, I believe. But I think one of his kids had turned on a cat filter, and he made just, your attorney, Your Honor, I assure you, I am not a cat. He just, this is one of those things that just went around the world. It was such a weird time. But yeah, no, it's neat to see the way that technology has made life move a lot faster, but there's always some fun absurdities in there as well, and that's one that always kind of sticks with me. So let me ask you this. Now, you've been practicing for 32 years. 32 years is a well-established. What's that?
It's a long
I mean,
time.
well, the fact that you're in your what mid 40s tells me you must have started practicing law when you were what, 15? Is that am I right on the numbers there? Just a little bit
Yeah,
or a little
close,
maybe a
close.
little off. But I mean that tells me you know what you're doing and you've been doing this a long time. Which means you're good at what you do. You wouldn't still be in it if you were bad. However, I'm a firm believer that you step up to bat enough times. Nobody bats 1,000, as they say. So I'm sure that in your legal career, you've had some moments that were just a failure, and it could be the case that a client said the wrong thing. He was supposed to say one thing, but then said something else. It could be the case that you guys totally thought you had everything lined up, but then a judge or even a jury, I know you did criminal defense, just decided something else out of the blue. What's one or two of what you would consider the biggest failures or setbacks in your career that you've experienced, but what have you learned from them, and how do you carry that forward to make sure you're always giving the best care to your clients?
Um, to think about, a big massive failure.
But I've had zero. We're that good. We bat a
Yes, we're that
thousand.
good. One thing that they teach attorneys when they're teaching you how to litigate is be careful not to ask the last question. Don't ask a question you don't know the answer to, and don't keep going. I had done, and this is one of the reasons that I don't do criminal defense anymore. This is one of the last trials that I did because it was a child sex abuse case. So it was a terrible, terrible
Mm.
case. And my client was the uncle of the girl that he had touched, and he was slow. He was mentally disabled, and um, during the during sentencing, I thought I would have he had been convicted, and in Texas, it's a bifurcated trial. So we do guilt, innocence first, and then punishment second. And so he'd been convicted, and I thought I'll bring his mother on um, as the sympathetic mother pleading for her son. Here he's special needs and didn't really understand, and something.
Yeah.
But I didn't interview her before I put her on the stand, which was the first big mistake. And when she got up there and she was being questioned, she said, um, well, we knew he was doing it and we told him to quit it. I thought, so that wasn't helpful.
Does that actually like raise liability issues for her if she knew it was going on? And like, I'm
I
curious.
suppose it could have if that
It
family,
didn't, but
but it was within her own family. But yes, if the victim's family, I guess, wanted to sue her, these were not people who had anything that they could. But what I learned from that was make sure you interview your witnesses ahead of time, know what they're going to say,
oh,
help them maybe not say certain things. Yes, I learned to be careful. I just assumed a mother is going to be sympathetic and plead for her child, and that is just not the way it went. Um, um,
did she view that as a type of pleading? Like she thought maybe that made it better, or that was just
I I don't remember exactly what the question was. I just remember the answer. It was such a bad answer. Um, I don't remember. I think that she may have been thinking, well, we tried to stop it. We knew it was
yeah.
wrong. I guess that was where she was coming from. Things that
I can see that.
yeah, things that I've learned in family law though, and this was kind of eye-opening for me. Texas allows jury trials in family law cases, one of the few
Huh.
states that does jury trials. And we don't do them very often, but it is an option. And I did a trial back in 2004 for a dad who had kind of been the primary caregiver of this 6-year-old child. And mom had been cheating on him, and she was in sales. She traveled a lot. He worked full time, but he was more the primary caretaker. He wanted to be able to take the child and move back to Colorado. And we went to jury trial, and we got everything we asked for, everything. Like the jury gave him, they really did not like mom, did not approve of her behavior. And he got everything. He got primary custody. He was allowed to move back to Colorado. He got the visitation schedule. He got everything. And we walked out and he was sad. And I looked at him, I'm like, what do you mean? What? We got everything. And he said, no, we didn't. Because before this all happened, I saw my son 100% of the time. Every day I came home from work and he was there. Every day I could see him. I could put him to bed. I could ask him how his day was. And now I have him 2/3 of the time. And I lost 1/3 of the time with my son. And I mean, it was heartbreaking for me it was just eye-opening. I hadn't been divorced yet at that time. And so it didn't really occur to me how much you lose in divorce, regardless of what you like win in divorce court. Everybody really loses in divorce court. And anyway, that was really eye-opening for me.
It's a good everybody loses. Like there's it's
It's
almost
just a matter of
fatalistic,
degree.
but it's yeah, but the reality on the ground, everybody, I'm writing that down because I might even make my assistant clip that everybody loses in divorce court. It's painful, but it's true. And it's just a sad reality on the ground, I guess.
Yeah.
I want to ask you really quickly, you said Texas is one of the few places that does jury trials. Is that something that both parties have to agree to, or one party can request it and then it goes, or okay.
Yes, there has to be a jury issue. The jury only decides certain issues. So you have to have a jury issue in order to get to a jury. But the jury can decide if it's child custody, they decide who will be the primary, who's going to be the primary parent. They also will decide geographic restriction. So if one parent wants to, take the child and move back to Colorado or wherever, the jury will decide the geographic restriction for the child's residence. But when it comes to visitation, child support, all of that goes to the judge. So for example, if the parties agree that we're going to be joint managing conservators, mom determines primary, but we can't agree on visitation, then there's no jury issue, so no jury. When it comes to the divorce, the jury they can decide, well, Texas still has common law marriage, so they decide whether or not there's a common law marriage. They decide whether or not a prenup is valid. If there's fault, if it's a fault divorce,
Hmm.
adultery, cruel treatment, that's something else the jury can decide. Um, Characterization of property, whether or not it's community or separate. So, but the actual division of property goes to the judge. So there are jury issues and non-jury issues.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I did not actually realize that. So you do learn something new every day. And
Yeah.
that's kind of fascinating. Well, let me ask you the flip side of that question I asked you a minute ago. I asked you about your biggest failure. But in 32 years, I'm sure you've had some great successes and some amazing wins. What are one or two of the things in your legal career you're most proud of? The proverbial feathers in the cap, so to speak, that you're just wow, it could be a case that you guys thought you were going to lose and you won. It could be whatever it happens to be. What are the things that you look at? What's a couple of the things you look at that you would call the biggest successes of your career?
Um, well, okay. So several years ago, I don't know, maybe this was 8, 10 years ago, I was having a particularly bad day, which in family law happens a lot. We're feeling beat down. And I got a phone call completely out of the blue from a woman in South Carolina. And she said, "Oh, I'm so happy I finally tracked you down. It took me a while to find you." She said, "And I know you won't remember me, but you represented me back in 1996, I think." She said, and this is when I was still doing criminal defense, she said, "I had been arrested and they took my children away. CPS took my children away and told me that I wasn't going to get them back for 2 years. You got me out of jail. You represented me in the CPS case. You got my children back for me in 6 months. You got me divorced from my husband who was in prison." And she said, "And I now have the life that I always dreamed of. My children are grown, I have grandchildren, and you gave that to me." And she said, "I just wanted to say thank you and that I hope you have the life that you've always dreamed of too." And I thought, this is the most special phone call I have ever received. And the timing was excellent because I was in a headspace of I'm quitting tomorrow. It was really special. And I have to remember that when I'm having a bad day, that what I do matters and it does change people's lives. And so that's those are my successes when I hear from people down the road that whatever we worked out in their case or whatever they got that it worked out, that their children are doing well, that they're doing well. Those are the successes that I like to hear about. It's hard to know, like at the time, because I can go into trial and like I said, I could get everything that I ask for, everything that I could potentially ask for. And I still don't know if that was truly a success until I hear like down the road, how did it turn out? So those to me are the big successes. And I try to learn from those and apply it to my current cases to say, look, I thought this was a great idea for this family and turns out it
Yeah.
wasn't. So let's not do that.
You said a minute ago, and I think that this is telling in a lot of ways. I have my degrees in philosophy and history. I looked at law school. I used to take the practice LSATs. I thought they're really fun, and I didn't know what branch of law I'd want to go into, and I went into marketing instead because reasons. But um, two of the areas of law I thought I could never go into would be family law and criminal defense, just because I was so afraid of dealing with people at their lowest and having it wear me down. And you just said something. You said in family law, it's often a bad day. Even when it's a good day, it's a bad day. Like it's just draining. So what do you do? How do you manage that stress? And how do you help your clients manage that stress?
So we do deal with very high emotion clients and families. In criminal defense, I was dealing a lot with the family members, my husband, my son is in jail, help me, help me. But in family law, I'm dealing with the people who are going through it. And whenever I have new hires, especially new receptionists, legal assistants, I have to really talk them through. You're going to be first point of contact. You may be the first person that this person ever says the word divorce to. And they're going to cry and they're going to yell and and they do. They call and they're like, I called my attorney 10 minutes ago. How come they haven't called me back? Um, so we deal with a lot of high emotion. And what I try to do, I schedule all my consults for at least an hour, and I want to listen to them because, and I find this especially with women who have dealt with any type of abuse. They haven't told anyone. A lot of times they haven't ever told anyone. It's a secret that they're living with, and they need someone to listen to them. And so I want to listen, and I just listen. Try not to ask a lot of questions, but then I do try to offer them some support and some options. And when people come into my office, they're terrified, always. It doesn't matter who they are. They are terrified either because they think they're going to lose their children, they're going to lose their money, they're not going to have any money, they're going to be homeless. The other person has been saying, if you divorce me, I'm going to take everything from you. You'll never see your kids again. I mean, they are so scared. And so my goal in that initial consult is to talk them through and reality test with them and say, okay, this is probably how it's going to go. And I don't really care what he or she or his mother or whatever has been saying to you. This is the reality. Given what you're telling me, this is probably how your case is going to come out. And I can't give you guarantees but this is probably where you're headed. And I've done this long enough and I've seen this scenario enough to know that this is within a range how this is going to come out. And that's actually where Exhale comes from, the divorce financial calculator. It's so that people who are sitting at home and thinking about divorce, terrified about what their finances are going to be, can enter all of their information into this website, and they can come away looking at what is going to be their financial future. And they'll end up with a spreadsheet that looks just like this. It's interactive. It will have all of their assets and debts all in a list, and they can move them back and forth on the right-hand side. And there's a ton of information. There's videos, there's, click buttons with all kinds of information that will show them, look, this is what you are likely to have at the end of this divorce. There's a budget as well, and the budget will show them this is what you can expect to have on a monthly basis. And so they can breathe again. That's where the word exhale comes from. They can breathe a little bit and think, okay, my life is going to be different, but I'm not going to be homeless. I'm going to be okay. Maybe I thought I should keep the house, but looking at this, probably not a good idea to keep the house. We should probably sell the house, or whatever it is. They can actually start thinking and planning. And it is empowering to take away a little bit of that fear and take a little bit of control. And that's what I've always tried to give people in my consultations with them, is to let them breathe again and know you're going to be okay. Life will be different, but that doesn't mean it's going to be bad. And, try to give them a little idea of this is what it will look like. So anyway, that's kind of how I deal with the high emotion, because once they have that information and they can breathe again, they can relax a little bit, and then I can work with them too. I can actually talk to them about reality and, I'm sorry that your friend in California got all this alimony. You're not getting that, but here is what you are likely to get.
Gotcha. Tell me a little bit more, because I was going to dig into this anyway, about Exhale as a platform. So who is this really for? Just your clients? It sounds like you said other people, including other attorneys, have used this. Does this work with people outside of Texas? Who is it for? Who's the target audience? It looks like you can get started for free. Is it a monthly fee, a one-time fee? Are there tiers? How does it work?
Okay, so it is directed at a couple of different target audiences, but initially it was for the people who are sitting at home thinking about divorce. Like, they're miserable in their marriage, but they're terrified to pull the trigger and go for a divorce or go talk to a divorce attorney, because they're too scared of, what the life after divorce is going to look like. And so this is $75. Well, it's free to get started. You can get started and start building your spreadsheet, your worksheet for free. But if you decide to use the full platform, it's only $75. It's a 6-month subscription. You can go in anytime. It saves all of the information. It's all encrypted. And you can go in if you like, maybe you didn't know the amount of the mortgage, or you didn't realize you had your spouse has stock options. You can go in and update it, change it, work with it throughout the life of the subscription, and then you can renew the subscription as many times as you want to. And so it gives you an idea personally. And then the next target audience is for all those people that are trying to do their own divorce, which is now 70% of the population and going up with, forms available and AI out there. There's people doing their own divorces. But just because you have forms doesn't mean you know what to put on those forms.
Mhm.
And so this tells you like, what is separate property? What is community property? How is all this calculated? What are we actually dividing? And, what is my child support either that I'm going to pay or receive? How is that calculated? So for right now, because this is brand new, it just came out in April, it is calculated based on Texas law and Texas calculations. The asset division will probably be pretty close in any state, because that doesn't vary by much. The child support, spousal support, that will vary by state. And so as I continue to develop it, I'm going to be adding in all the other states. So when they sign up, they just click on which state to make sure that the calculations follow their state's law. And all of the information that's in here, a lot of it will carry over state to state. When we talk about what to do with the house, and there's a button, there's a video that talks about, well, there's lots of different options. You could sell the house and divide the proceeds. One person could buy the other person out. They could get a home equity loan. They could get a HELOC. They could, there's so many different options. They can take an OLT lien. And what does that mean? And how do I do that? All the information is in there to give them lots of different options. So that's who it's targeted for. If for attorneys, there's also attorneys, CPAs, financial planners, it's a professionals subscription so that they can have all their clients in one platform. So they have the client sign up, fill out all the information, answer all the questions. And the questions, it's like TurboTax, it's step by step by step. It walks you through something really complex, but in very simplistic terms. And the attorneys or other professionals can have all their clients in one place, and in the same format. And the attorney subscription is $99 a year. So it's very affordable.
Very cool. Well, if you guys are interested, again, that's Exhale. I just shut down the website, but it's Exhale, EX-Hale, Hale. So like Exhale, but also X is in my X, right? Exhale.com, X-Hale.com. We'll put a link to that in the description down below as well. I'll make sure my assistant does that. You mentioned a lot of people are starting to represent themselves legally in divorce cases. Obviously, ChatGPT apparently passed the bar with a 90% not that long ago. Your firm was written about AI and divorce. Where do you think technology can genuinely help family law clients, and where is it dangerous?
Right now, I'm finding it's a lot more dangerous than helpful, because people are relying on it like gospel, and it's just not there yet. So I have lots of clients who, and I know that I send them an email with all kinds of information, and they must drop it into, they tell me it's Claude or ChatGPT, whatever it is. And they send me back these crazy list of questions.
Mm.
And and what I've told them, because I mean, I can see clearly this is where this came from. I'm happy to answer every one of these questions and every question you continue to send me. But you also have to remember that you're paying your attorney by the hour.
Yeah.
And so, do you really want me to answer all of these questions? Like, just because Claude says you should ask all these questions, go through and see what you really want me to answer, because you're paying me to do that. And some
Mhm.
people still want me to answer them. That's fine. I'll answer them all day. But that's one. It's also making them focus on things that are not really part of their own case. Like, it's because it's pulling from so many different areas that it's causing them to focus on things that don't matter.
Mhm.
Or they're running the other attorney through ChatGPT, and oh, look, they specialize in this, or they know that, or so what? So do I. Um, but I think it's causing more anxiety than it's relieving, because it's bringing up things that they don't necessarily need to know about, or it's giving them bad information. Again, it's pulling from source that it's pulling from all the stuff that's on the internet. Well,
Yeah.
not everything on the internet is good.
I saw a quote from Abraham Lincoln that said, "Believe everything you read on the internet."
Yeah.
So I don't know what.
But you know, when you have people who are on Reddit or on whatever forum complaining about my divorce this and my lawyer this, and it doesn't mean it's good information, but AI is pulling from all of those, everything.
Yeah.
And so it's hurting it. Within the law field, um, I don't use it as much as I think other types of law use AI. I don't find it all that helpful in a lot of what we do in family law. And you know, when I have my West representative comes in and he's like, but we have co-counsel and we have AI, you know, it's they said you take all of the bank statements and drop it into, you know, co-counsel and it'll summarize everything for you. Okay, well that's helpful in some ways. They said, you know, I have 600 pages worth of text messages and drop it in and it'll summarize for you. But when I'm looking for psychological abuse, parental alienation, and I tell it, find me examples of that in these text messages, AI can't find it all that well because it's
Yeah.
subtle and it's individual. And, you know, when I need to know from my client, what are the really awful, mean things that your spouse says to you, because it's contextual for that person. And so AI is not going to find that. Or when I'm looking for, you know, somebody says, well, my spouse is an alcoholic and they all so much alcohol. And I tell it to find me all the alcohol purchases on all of the bank statements. Well, it'll find the liquor store purchases, but it's
Hmm.
not necessarily going to see the $7 purchase at Circle K every day at 7 p.m. You know,
Yeah.
so so there are things that you know are just I just don't think AI is ready for. It also hallucinates, and the Texas Supreme Court just came out with a new rule this week, last week, um, sanctioning any attorney who did not, who basically used AI to write a brief, did not check the references, uh, because there are fake references coming up, or there are
Hmm.
references that don't refer to the quote that it's, there's been a lot of it, and there are non-lawyers that are doing it, and the Texas Supreme Court said they're going to hold them to the same standard. Like if you're not writing it yourself and checking it yourself, you can be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
So, so that's where I'm seeing problems with AI. I mean, it definitely has a lot of great uses too.
Yeah. I use it to summarize a lot of my interviews, and it pulls out notes and it'll make clips and stuff like that pretty darn well. But yeah, there's certainly limits to it, and we definitely want to be cautious before giving the reins over to something like this.
Yes.
So here's a related question. You've been practicing law for 32 years, give or take.
Yeah.
What do you understand about divorce now that you couldn't have understood when you first got started?
Um, well, a lot of it is what happened in my own personal life over those 32 years too. Um, when I first started, I was not yet married and was not a mom. I got married. I was a second wife. I was a stepmom. So I dealt with being a stepmom. My ex and his ex did not get along at all, and there was a lot of litigation. So I got to see what it was like as the stepmom in litigation, and what it's like to go to the courthouse, and how those rulings like affect your everyday life.
Hmm.
And then I had two kids, and it was a whole lot easier for me to point the finger at, you know, bad parent, bad parent. How could you do that in court when, oh, now that it's happened to me, now I see how, how that could happen. And it gave me a very different perspective on parenting and mistakes that parents make. And it helps me present, especially because most of the judges are parents too, to be able to say, look, yes, my client made this mistake and you know, learned from it and is moving on and owning it, and whatever the mistake was, you know, learning from it. So I present the cases differently. And then, of course, listening to my clients, and that one client who said, yes, I got everything I asked for, but I still lost. That was eye-opening for me. And then watching how some of these scenarios that sounded like a great idea when we asked for them in court, how they played out in the long term. And some of them were good and some of them were not. Then I got divorced. My kids were 10 and 12 when I got divorced. And I definitely learned what it feels like to be divorced. I'd been practicing 17 years at that point, and I thought I knew everything there was to know about divorce. And I learned that no, I really just don't. And
Yeah.
um, what the emotions were like as the person going through it. Yeah, they call it practicing law for a reason. We continue to practice and learn because every case I learn something new. And when people come in and they say, wow, you've been doing this so long, you must have seen everything. Yeah, no. Every day I feel like I see something new, something different, something I never thought of. Um, it just continues to evolve. Um, so yeah, I learned so much, and just listening to my clients, like really listening to them. And when I'm locked in a room with a client for 8, 10, 12 hours for mediation, I really listen because
Yeah.
I don't have a choice. I'm a captive audience. But that's when they really tell me their stories and how this is impacting all of their life, everything about their life, their relationships with their in-laws, their own family, their friends, their everything. Divorce impacts everything in their life, and to really hear it, and then it helps me, if we don't settle in mediation, present that and tell the story to the court, because to me it's all about the story.
Gotcha. Oh, that makes sense. Um, So I want to be respectful of your time. We're coming up on the hour here, so I'm going to probably wind our conversation down just because I want to be respectful of your time. So here in a minute, Daryl, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you my three closing questions. I gave you those to kind of percolate on in the pre-roll, but I'll state them right now just so you can kind of re-percolate on them for a minute. Question number one: if I were to give you a magic wand and you could change one thing about your firm, what would you change and why? Question number two: if you can go back in time, meet young Daryl and give her some advice, what advice would you give yourself and why? Other than get out of New York. And also, there's this thing called Bitcoin. Buy a lot of it and hold it to 100K, right? Those are the obvious answers. But and then number three is if I gave you a magical pen and you could change one law, add, edit, or strike a law from the books, what law would you add, edit, or change? So percolate on that for a minute. While you're doing that, I'm going to jump over and we're going to take a look at your websites again. So as a reminder, I am talking to the lovely Daryl Weinman, who runs the eponymous law firm that bears her name, Weinman and Associates, serving family law issues and some criminal defense in and around Travis County, Austin, Texas, etc. Should you need the services that her law firm provides, please reach out at weinmanfamilylaw.com or give them a call at 512-472-4040. As always, we will have links to that down below. Also, if you are looking at a divorce, or if you are a divorce attorney or a CPA, and a tool like this would be great, please check out Exhale. That's ex-hale.com. Just launched in April, she said, but it looks like it's a growing tool. Definitely a woman with a lot of talent, a lot of gumption and know-how, and building a web tool like this, I think, is a really cool thing. So congrats on that. That's a really neat thing to do. But we'll put links to both of those down below in the description of this podcast. Before I jump back over, we are going to read from our final sponsor, and that sponsor today is Rank with News. When somebody Googles your company or your law firm, what do they actually see? Is it just your website, or do they see real credibility, trust, and authority? Because the businesses getting chose today aren't just visible, they're validated. And that's where Rank with News comes in. Rank with News helps feature your business or firm in major media outlets. Outlets like Business Insider, Yahoo News, Yahoo Finance, AP News, Bloomberg, Reuters, and more. So when prospects look you up, they don't just find you, they find that they trust you. This isn't about running more ads, it's about owning your reputation at the exact moment when it matters most. And that's what Rank with News can help you do. Visit rankwith.news to see how this works and speak with a specialist about featuring your business or firm in major page one news. That's rankwithnews.com or rankwith.news. All right, let me close out. My Zoom is being a little slow today, too. I was trying to get it to To act faster. There we go. All right. So my three closing questions, Daryl, for you are this. Number one, if I gave you a magic wand and you could change something about your firm right now, what would you change if you could change anything?
Um, I mean, if I could change anything, I would want all of the insight and the knowledge that I've accumulated to be implanted in the brain of everybody in my office. Every associate, every paralegal, everybody can have the same insight that I have accumulated. I mean, I try to train them and teach them, but obviously my brain is kind of individual to me. I wish I could help them all with all that same insight.
So your next web project is DarylGPT.com. Is that?
Yeah.
I want a nickel if you go with that name. I want a nickel.
Okay.
Um, all right, question number two. We go back in time, 32-ish years, and we meet young Daryl, and you're able to give yourself some advice at the start of your career. What advice would you give yourself?
That one is harder. I've been thinking about that since you told me you were going to ask that. Um, to roll with punches, that make a plan but be flexible, and and that is kind of how I live my life. Is I plan. I'm a planner. I plan everything out, but things change all the time, and you got to be able to be flexible with your plan. Okay, this factor changed, now we're going to go in a different direction, and you have to be okay with that. Which, the personality of a lawyer is, like I said, hard to change. We're resistant to change, but it's important. You make a plan, but be flexible and be willing to change.
That makes sense. It's good advice in general. So it's good life advice that all of us should probably follow. All right. So question number three, I have a magical pen. We'll say it's a miraculous pen. I'm going to give a free shout out to kansasmonks.org. It's a Benedictine abbey, and there's a bunch of brothers and priests that live up there. And one of the priests must have blessed this pen because I found that it has magical, miraculous ink that can strike laws from the books, edit laws, or add new laws. But unfortunately, I use it for note taking, and it's almost out of ink. So there's not much left. So if I were to give you this pen and you could make one change to any law, big or small, local, national, whatever it happens to be, you can make a change that's in your wheelhouse. You can get rid of property tax. You can get rid of income tax. Whatever you would want to do, what law would you change and why, Daryl?
I would reinstate the right for women to choose abortion in the state of Texas, which was taken away recently and is very sad and has got terrible, terrible consequences. And I would give them that right back.
Now, is that I actually don't know if that is that because of the Roe v. Wade or the Dobbs decision, or is that something local in Texas that happened recently?
It is specific to Texas. Texas took away the right to choose. Women cannot have an abortion in the state of Texas, and doctors are being criminally prosecuted for it's having terrible consequences, and I would change it back.
All right. Well, that is your answer to the question, and that is what you've used the pen for. So there we go. Well, Daryl, I do thank you very much for joining me on the podcast today. I always like to let my guest have the final words. Are there any last words of wisdom or thoughts or anything else you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Um, Divorce is really scary. One of my messages for my clients is your life is going to be different, but that doesn't mean it's going to be bad. It's just going to be different. And it is an opportunity for them to create a new life for themselves going forward, and to see it as an opportunity, and to see it as a way to craft a new and better future for themselves and their children. It shouldn't
That's a
be,
good word.
shouldn't be viewed as so negative.
That's a good way to put it. And you actually have this quote from Lao Tzu on the Exhale website. New beginnings are often described as painful endings, and that's probably a reality on the ground. So when you said that, that is exactly what popped into my mind. So I figured I'd just jump over and share that really quickly as well. So, well, Daryl, thank you very much for joining me on the podcast today. I've enjoyed the call, learned some new things, which I always like to do as well. This has been The Attorney Post. If you are listening to this podcast on any of the podcast repositories, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, etc., please rate us. This always helps out the channel, helps us grow. If you are on YouTube, give us a like, subscribe, and a share. As always, though I've been chatting about law and legal issues, this podcast does not constitute legal advice. If you have a legal issue, you should always seek the advice of a competent attorney in your your area who focuses on the matter that you need help with. Obviously, if you need help with a family law issue and you're in the Austin area, I think that Daryl and her firm would be a wonderful resource for you. So please feel free to reach out to them. We have the website and phone number down below. Also, if you need a financial planning tool, the Excel website also might be a good idea. But the number one thing you can do to both help this podcast grow and help people out there is if you know someone who would benefit from the content in this particular episode, please feel free to share it with them. Help them get the knowledge that they need in order to make the right decisions they need to make. Because as I always say, if you don't know your rights, you don't have any. Until next time, this is Justin West with the Attorney Post. Thank you guys very much for listening and stay safe out there. Bye-bye.